It's Tuesday, June 27th, 2017. I'm your host, Sarah Mantle. We have a great show in store for you today. First, we'll check in with Deputy Chief Matthew Sonnabend. Then we'll learn more about preventing Lyme disease and other tick-borne illnesses with entomologist Larry Dapsis. And finally, we'll chat with DPW Director Dan Santos. All of that on this episode of Barnstable Today. But first, let's go ahead and get a look at today's top headlines. Improvements are being planned for Barnstable Village. The $2 to $3 million Barnstable Village Improvements Project calls for improving pedestrian safety by slowing traffic, installing new sidewalks and crosswalks, and adding more lighting. The project is still being developed. Residents will have a chance to weigh in on the plans during a public meeting today at 3. The meeting will be held in the Harborview Conference Room at the Barnstable County Complex. Tiki Port Management will go before the Board of Health for a show cause hearing today. The restaurant is facing the show cause hearing for alleged recurring critical food violations. The Board of Health meets today at 3 in the Town Hall hearing room. The Osterville Rotary Club is donating a flagpole and flag for Dowses Beach. The flag was flown over the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. The town will host a dedication ceremony for the new flag and flagpole Monday, July 3rd at 9 a.m. at Dowses Beach. Parking will be at a premium. Early arrival is recommended. Well, it's time for residents to renew those transfer station stickers and free recycling stickers. A transfer station sticker will cost residents $240 for one vehicle and $25 for a second vehicle. The new stickers are now on sale at the transfer station office. Make sure to bring a copy of your valid vehicle registration with you. The transfer station office is open 7 days a week from 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Up next, we'll chat with Deputy Chief Matthew Sonnabend. Joining me now live on the phone, I welcome Deputy Chief Matthew Sonnabend. Such a busy time here on Cape Cod and in Barnstable. Lots of people coming to visit. I think the 4th of July is probably one of the biggest weekends we have here on Cape Cod. How are you guys in the Barnstable Police Department getting ready?
Well, you know, Sarah, this is an awesome time to be on the Cape. We look forward to it every year, but it does entail a little bit of work on our end. We've canceled a few days off. We've got extra staffing on to cover the various different parades. You know, we have a lot of events going on in town over the course of the 4th of July weekend and into the next week. It is such an exciting time.
It really is. And, you know, sadly for the police department, you guys don't really get much time off during the 4th of July. So we really feel for you there, but we appreciate your service because you really help with so many different things. I mean, with all of those parades come street closures, so that sort of move throughout the day. You guys start out, I think, in Barnstable Village, and then Centerville has a parade. So you guys are really all over the place.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We have a team of about 20 officers that go from parade to parade throughout the day. And because some of the times overlap, we have, you know, these groups get split up and are covering several different events at a time. But as you're right, it kicks off at 9 a.m. over in Barnstable on Route 6A, and then at 10 o'clock you've got the Centerville Parade. At 11 you have the Cotuit Parade, and then at 2 there's the Hyannis Inner Harbor Boat Parade, which is always attracts a lot of attention, and then at 4 o'clock the big Hyannis Parade.
Yeah, it just doesn't stop. And then, of course, the fireworks as well. So
Nope.
do you have any advice for residents as they head out? I mean, I know we're going to need to bring a little extra patience with us, but
Oh, absolutely.
when we talk about street closures or parking bans, is there any advice you have to offer us?
Well, most of these parades, everyone goes to pretty much the same thing every year. So a lot of people really know the drill, and it helps us out a lot. That a lot of the locals know what goes on and whatnot. But for those that are visiting, if you're going to attend these parades, in advance of these parades, we do close down some of the streets. We do close down some of the parking so we can allow for the safety of the people participating in the parade as well as the people watching the parade. So we don't want any young children darting out in front of floats because they're hidden behind parked cars. So, there's generally along like Route 6A early in the morning down in Barnstable Village, there will be no parking until the conclusion of the parade. The Centerville Parade, same thing along Centerville Main Street there. Cotuit, they'll be closing down Cotuit Main Street and School Street probably about 10:30 in the morning to make sure that people have access to get into the parade, but they will not have access to park right along Main Street or to be driving through the area as the parade commences. And obviously the Hyannis Parade, no parking along Main Street once we start getting that parade assembled as well. So keep those things in mind, and we'll have traffic officers out there directing traffic and posting detours and everything else like that to get people around.
Wonderful. Glad to hear it. Any other issues that we should think about on the 4th of July? I know really a lot of people are celebrating and in a celebratory mood, but what are the laws as far as fireworks? Because I know a lot of people shoot off fireworks, but they're not legal. You shouldn't be shooting off fireworks.
Fireworks are still illegal in the state of Massachusetts. You can be arrested for shooting them off and everything else like that. Plus, also, we want to take into consideration that the town does have noise ordinances and things like that. So I know people are pretty forgiving around the 4th of July. They realize that their neighbors are going to have some fireworks, that there are going to be some parties, and there is going to be traffic congestion, as you mentioned. So people are really, they really ratchet up the tolerance, and they help us get through this event. But I think the biggest thing to keep in mind, no matter where you are or what you're doing, is safety. As you mentioned the other day when we were speaking, that alcohol does get consumed on these events and whatnot. Please, 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 just take the time that if you are going to indulge, get a ride, use public transportation or carpool of some sort. And if you are going to have fireworks, just remember that they are not toys, and that you really need to be very careful and do not let small children handle them, and keep them safe.
Great advice, because we all just know we want to have a great time on the 4th of July, and we don't want to deal with any emergency room trips or any arrests or anything like that. So
no.
Keep it clean.
All we want is for everyone to enjoy their holiday.
Exactly. Have a good time. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Have a wonderful day.
We're excited for the 4th of July. Can't wait. So thank you very much.
I can't wait.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Our guest today, Deputy Chief Matthew Sonnabend. Now we're going to learn more about how to prevent tick-borne illnesses with entomologist Larry Dapsis. So Larry, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. We're very excited to talk about some of these things because this is a very important topic matter, talking about ticks.
It certainly is. And
the prevention of ticks and what we need to know about ticks. So let's start first. There really, as you were telling me, there really is no time. A tick season is all year round. So
exactly.
From January to December.
Exactly. That's how I answer that question. Larry, when's tick season? Well, it starts in January, ends in December, picks up again in January. So anytime you get temperatures above freezing and a break in snow cover, you're going to have tick activity. And you see that in the data. There are cases of Lyme disease each and every month. But as we were talking about earlier, the summer months is when that thing really peaks.
Why does it peak in the summer?
Sure. It's due to the stage of the tick that's out here now. From last fall till late spring, we had the adult stage ticks out here. And they're larger and more easy to see. what came out a couple of weeks ago is the nymph stage of the deer tick. And they're about the size of a poppy seed. So even if you're doing your tick checks and things like that, that thing can elude you. And that stage of the tick is responsible for 85% of all tick-borne illnesses.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is.
That's a huge chunk.
And they'll be with us until early August.
Wow. So let's talk about prevention, because I think that's the #1 way that we can prevent or help prevent a tick-borne illness.
Absolutely.
Is prevention. So let's talk about what are the best ways to prevent getting a tick bite.
I don't recommend staying away from tick habitat, which we're surrounded by. I mean, you got to enjoy the outdoors. I mean, Cape Cod's a beautiful place to recreate and spend time. The #1 tool in my box of protection is the use of permethrin-treated clothing and mission-critical treating footwear. And treating footwear is important because that nymph stage tick is down in a leaf litter. So the first place they attach to are your shoes. And what I found in doing my initial research with this product 6 years ago is that if you put a tick on a permethrin-treated fabric surface for 60 seconds and then move it to something clean, on average that tick will be dead in 9 minutes.
Really?
And since I've been doing this protocol, I've not got a single tick bite in 6 years. Knock on wood.
Wow. Where can you purchase this? So you said permethrin treated clothing. So you can actually buy clothing treated with this. Can you buy a spray and treat clothing yourself?
Yes, you can skin this cat 3 different ways.
Okay.
All right, so you can go buy product and treat your clothing. I treat my footwear about every 3 or 4 weeks, and if you treat your pants and socks, it'll stay active through 6 washings or 45 days, whatever comes first. Biggest problem I had 6 years ago was finding the product on the Cape. Only Eastern Mountain Sports had it. And so I met with all the major garden centers on the Cape and convinced them to stock this product. And according to the store managers, product is flying off the shelf, which is really good. The word is getting out there.
When would we need to worry about using that type of treatment for our clothing? So let's say, in what situations? I mean, just if we're going hiking, do we need to worry about it at the beach? What kind of areas should we be concerned with?
Yeah, don't worry about the beach. And actually, let's not lose the pre-treated clothing thing. We'll just park that right here for a second. Research in Connecticut demonstrated that 2/3 of the people that were sending them ticks for identification got that tick from their own backyard. So ticks and gardening go hand in hand. It's not just going hiking in Nickerson State Park, which certainly there's plenty of ticks there, but there's plenty of ticks all over the Cape, quite frankly. And we've monitored infection rates. Now we're up to 5 different pathogens. So I wear permethrin-treated clothing basically year-round.
When you're outside?
I just wear it. That's what I wear.
Wow. Good to know. Treat that clothing. We can probably get it at garden centers around the Cape. Let's talk about the different kinds of tick-borne illnesses that there are, because there are some newer tick-borne illnesses.
Absolutely.
So we have babesiosis, Lyme disease. What else do we have to worry about?
All right, we're up to 5 different pathogens that these deer ticks can carry. So Lyme is #1 by far and away. But we have babesiosis and anaplasmosis, which are both on the increase, and over 50% of the cases of those occur in southeastern Massachusetts, and they can be quite serious. Several years ago, we were told that there were cases of relapsing fever on the Cape. So we surveyed the tick populations, and yeah, we found it in about 2 to 4% of the ticks on the Cape. So it's out there. It's probably going to follow the same pattern of these other emerging diseases, kind of starting out in Cape Cod, and it's going to radiate outward. And then last year we did surveillance for the newest one, Powassan virus. And in our surveillance work, in collaboration with UMass Amherst, the tick testing laboratory, we found Powassan infected ticks from Falmouth all the way out to Truro. So it tells us a couple things. One is it's probably been here for thousands and thousands of years. It's just flown under the medical radar screen, okay? And the other thing is when we looked at the infection rates, which were in some cases fairly high, like 10%. It tells us that we have to look at this thing a little bit like West Nile virus. A number of people can be exposed to it and be completely asymptomatic, but in rare instances where it goes into neuroinvasive, that's when things get very dicey. It'll land you in the hospital. It's fatal in about 10% of the cases. And if you survive it, because you can't treat it, it's a virus, people that live through this end up with permanent neurological damage. So it's something we want to make people aware of. There's an exposure risk, but in our eyes, based on the data and the number of cases that actually occur, that risk exposure is fairly low. Okay, so it's kind of like getting hit by lightning. Most people are not going to get hit by lightning in their lifetime, but there are some few individuals where that will happen with a really bad outcome.
So let's talk about what to do if you find a tick. So if you come back from a hike with your kids, you're checking your kids, someone has a tick. How do you remove that tick first?
Sure, you just brought up an interesting point. Kids, checking your kids. An important fact for people to understand is that kids age 5 to 9 have the highest incidence rate of Lyme disease in the state. So we as parents, whatever we've been doing up to this point in time is not working, okay? So we've got to rethink the game plan, really consider permethrin-treated clothing and footwear, which has a huge safety margin, so parents really shouldn't worry about putting their kids in treated clothing. If you do find a tick on you, first, proper removal. You don't do the Vaseline thing or the dish detergent or the flaming match trick. I'm not sure whoever invented that, but dispense with all of those. It's pointy tweezers. That is the tool, not big fat tweezers, because if you crush that tick, you just might get a very nasty infection, okay? And so pointy tweezers, you just grab that tick by the head as close to your skin as you can get, and just gently pry up, and a little pressure, because the mouth parts on a tick have recurved barbs, like fish hooks. That's why they seem like they're really stuck in there. So it will pop. And I tell people, save the tick. Save the tick. Don't flush it or throw it away, because now you have something that you can get some information on. We're recommending people send a tick to college. Basically send it to the Laboratory of Medical Zoology at UMass Amherst for testing. And once they receive the tick, you're going to get your report in 3 business days, guaranteed.
Wow.
And unlike the human blood tests for things like Lyme disease, this is 99.99% accurate, okay? So here's what it can do for you. Now you have hard data that if you know you were bitten by a tick and you're not feeling well, and now you're going to have a conversation with your doctor, you can tell your doctor that, hey, I was exposed to this potentially, and also this, and maybe even this, because we find a number of ticks are co-infected, meaning they're packing Lyme plus one of these other things. We've seen some tick reports that, people test positive for all 4 of the major pathogens.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the thing we're looking at. So we treat this like hand-to-hand combat. You don't want to lose a single fight. So, and doctors are starting to embrace this as a legitimate diagnostic tool to kind of help them, because what do 2 of these things together look like as a clinical presentation, or 3, or even all 4? So now the doctor has some information that they can look at you and figure out, okay, these are the things I should be looking for you as potential treatment regimen.
Great advice. So this is happening at UMass, so you could actually send it to UMass. What is the cost to have a tick tested like this? It's like a tongue twister.
Yeah,
what kind of cost are we looking at?
It's not like the cost of tuition of sending a kid to college.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. A standard panel test for Lyme, Babesia, Anaplasma, and relapsing fever, normally it's $50. Through the support of Cape Cod Healthcare, we received a grant this year to subsidize the cost of that testing until the money ran out, which happened a couple weeks ago. So from January to a couple weeks ago, for Cape residents, it was $15. Now it's $50, and then you have to layer another $100 on top of that for Powassan. That's a fairly expensive test. So people have to make a decision, the likelihood of it carrying powassan is pretty low, so maybe the standard panel test is the one to go with.
But like you said, they could have comorbid diseases, so maybe getting that test, the first test that's not quite as expensive, would be good initially.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's even at $50. I mean, the 15, that was basically for the price of a pizza. You're getting some really good data.
Right.
Now for $50, you're still getting some very useful data that you otherwise the doctors would be guessing at you.
And our viewers should be aware that that was part one of our TikTok with Larry Dapsis. Part two will be on tomorrow's show. Now joining us live over the phone, we have with us DPW Director Dan Santos. Dan, kind of an interesting topic that we have to talk about today. We all know that there was recently a ferry accident in the in Hyannisport on the jetty there. What is the town's responsibility when it comes to repairs for that jetty?
Well, good morning. That's a very interesting topic because the ownership of that jetty is kind of complicated and somewhat unclear. It was built, actually goes back about 100 years, the first part of it, and there were different additions to it, and they were constructed by different parties. So we're trying to sort all that out. But the more immediate thing is when you have something like this that it serves a couple of purposes. It calms the waters behind for the boats that are moored there, but also people use it to go fishing and people walk out there. And so the morning after it happened, I had the town engineer go out to do an inspection, and they went by boat and took some photographs and saw that there were basically two pretty large holes, and the jetty is a structure that's made of large boulders that are in the order of 1 or 2 tons. So these are big rocks, and so there's two holes because the IANO, the fast ferry, is a twin-hulled boat, and so each of those hulls kind of plowed through the jetty and opened it up. So that was the immediate thing that we identified, and so we clearly could see that damage. But the other factor is stability of it, and when people go out there, even before this happened, there are some issues in the jetty where people get stranded at a high tide because they're on one side and they can't get to the other. So it's been an ongoing issue. So we recently have posted no trespassing signs there. We don't want people on the jetty at this point for any reason because it's dangerous to start with, and we're not sure of the stability of the rocks that were moved and plowed through.
Right.
So that's one thing, is keeping people off it until we can get it repaired, and then we have to do an engineering evaluation to determine its stability, determine what it's going to take to repair it, and who's going to pay for that, and whether there's insurance money from the steamship, and all those kind of issues.
That was my next question. Does the steamship authority have any responsibility to make repairs because they were at fault for the accident?
That's not really for me to figure out. I would assume that they have insurance, and if they damage someone's property, that they'd be responsible, at least financially, for that. But that's for others to talk about. Yeah. My job is to make sure it's stable and it's serving its function, and so we will do that. The repair ultimately would take hiring a barge with a crane and replacing those boulders into the jetty as they were, finding them, picking them up if we need new ones. So it's not an inexpensive thing to fix because it has to be done from the water.
It seems like a pretty complicated process too, like you were saying, just making sure structurally it's sound. So the testing or study of it, as well as you were talking, those boulders are huge, where to find those to pop back in. So pretty challenging process here.
Yeah, and I imagine most of the boulders will come from right there. They haven't gone anywhere. They've just been pushed around and out of the way. So it's kind of rebuilding, like you repair anything else, a foundation, or it's not. It's obvious what needs to happen, but it's just a very difficult environment and takes large equipment. So we'll be working on that and figuring out what the repair is and when it's going to happen and who's going to pay for it. But for your viewers, obviously, to know that it's something that Public Works is responsible for ultimately addressing, as we are for all infrastructure in the town, from buildings and roads and parks and all those things that we take care of. This is just another one of them.
Yeah, and absolutely, like you mentioned earlier, too, safety is first and foremost, and everyone's your concern first and foremost. So just to remind everyone, too, to really not go on the jetty right now. This is not the time to go fishing because, like you said, you really want to evaluate that and make sure it's safe before anyone takes a walk out there on that jetty.
But it's not it's a no trespassing order, and they'd be subject to arrest. This isn't just a, would you mind not doing it? It's
right.
People need to be off that, and they could get into some hot water.
For trespassing.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you for the update, filling us in on everything involving that jetty. We really appreciate it, Dan, and look forward to chatting with you again next week.
Oh, me too. Thanks.
All right. Have a good one.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Our guest today, DPW Director Dan Santos. Now let's find out what's happening around town in today's community calendar with Megan Mamlock.
For those of you that want to benefit the local community, the Barnstable Police Department will be hosting Cape Cod Healthcare's Blood Drive this Tuesday, June 27th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. in the Bloodmobile in the Barnstable Police Department's parking lot. For donating to the cause, you'll receive a 10% off coupon to Kakadi's Burger Bar. You'll be entered to win a $25 gift card to Kakadi's Burger Bar. In addition to that, you'll also get a free movie pass when you donate. All blood donated stays on Cape Cod. Kids are invited to the last session of the 15th annual Fun-Filled Clamming Classes for Kids, which is being hosted by the Barnstable Natural Resource Program for younger people to experience and learn how to clam on Wednesday, June 28th at 9:30 at the Bridge Street Landing in Osterville. For more information or questions, call the Marine and Environmental Affairs.
Well, thanks for joining us today. We're going to be back tomorrow with another great show for you. On tomorrow's show, we'll chat with Neela Neary. She is Business Services Coordinator for Career Opportunities. We'll have part 2 of our TikTok with entomologist Larry Dapsis, and we'll have our in-depth coverage of the recent Flag Day ceremony held at West Hyannis Elementary. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mann.